All right, welcome back to 5 on Fridays. Excited for another episode. Another friend of the program is with us, Ashley Harris, registered dietitian. How are you doing today?
I am great. How are you today, Brandon?
I'm doing well. Today, we are going to talk about some high blood pressure and specifically nutrition and its impact on your blood pressure. So I guess, Ashley, are we just going to be talking about sodium the whole time?
No. And I love that you asked that because I think this is, obviously sodium's connected to blood pressure. And I think people automatically, that's what they think. I got to reduce my sodium. It's important. I'm not discounting the importance of reducing it. However, I'm all about let's get in the good stuff, right? What can we add to our diet that's fun, that's going to also help with our blood pressure? So I'm actually not going to talk about sodium. I'm going to talk about 3 other nutrients. Can you guess what they may be?
3 other nutrients. Oh gosh, let's see. The vitamin B complex, calcium. I'm going to throw a random one in there. Let's talk about sugar.
All very good guesses. One was right. So
1 of 3? Okay, cool.
Right. Calcium was right. So the 3 that I'm actually going to talk about today are potassium, calcium, and magnesium. So I'm not sure if you've heard of the DASH diet before. It actually stands for Dietary Approaches to Stopping Hypertension. This could be this wouldn't be a 5 on Fridays. This could be a whole video. We've done videos on this in the past. It's a whole eating plan, and they talk about certain amount of servings of fruits and vegetables and proteins and whole grains and dairy foods. A big chunk of this, though, is by getting all these in, you're ensuring that you're getting these 3 nutrients in.
Okay. All right. So we've nailed down the 3 nutrients. Help us understand, how do they help with our blood pressure, Ash?
Yeah. So it's a complex process. So I'm going to give you real high level overview, but basically the potassium is really important. Potassium kind of offsets sodium. So, when we have sodium, it actually causes our body to hold on to fluid. What happens is that fluid makes more blood volume. It puts pressure on our blood vessels, hence the high blood pressure. But sodium and potassium kind of work in conjunction and they balance each other out. That being said, no, I've been asked a million times, you cannot outrun a high sodium diet by just eating lots of potassium. They need to kind of go in conjunction with each other. But, typically we're getting around 2,000 milligrams of potassium. The recommendations are actually with this DASH diet for high blood pressure, we're looking to double that, 4,700 milligrams with low sodium, right? So that will create that proper balance. The calcium is another one. This is actually more complex processes. There has to do with thyroid gland, different things in there. Takeaway, we see correlations with low calcium diets and high blood pressure. So we know that calcium is important. And then that magnesium comes in. Magnesium is really important to getting that calcium and those potassium into our cells so they can function. So what we've seen is this trio of nutrients, when eaten in higher levels, is pretty effective in helping with our blood pressure.
That's good to know. That's interesting. I didn't know as much about the relationship between potassium and sodium. Mm-hmm. That makes sense that they are sort of in concert with each other. I think my favorite, though, is the magnesium. And I know a lot of people utilize magnesium for sleep aids, but I didn't really realize it was such an important conduit to make sure that calcium and potassium get into the cells as sort of a transport or a mechanism. So that's really good to know. Okay, so we've got the 3. Yes. The nutrients are important, but obviously you're here to talk about food. So what foods have these in high enough levels that it would make sense to start helping reduce our blood pressure?
Yes. And I get all excited about the food. But so, there's a whole variety of foods for each of these nutrients. And I'm going to tell you what some of them are. Really, truly, here's my little plug. If you are serious, if you have high blood pressure, you want to be hitting these nutrient amounts and you want to come up with a plan. What can I eat daily to make sure I get them in? Let me know. But basically the potassium. So we're thinking, fresh fruits and vegetables this time of year. So melons, cantaloupe, honeydew are really good ones. Leafy greens. So I have some spinach here. Spinach, you're going to hear me mention a lot for all of these. But spinach, cooked spinach, broccoli, potatoes, sweet potatoes, all of these are really rich in potassium. We want to shoot for, like I said, about 4,700 milligrams. 1 cup of cooked spinach has about 800 milligrams, though, in there of that potassium, which is going to take you a long way. Coconut water is another really good source of potassium with about 400 milligrams, give or take, for a cup. So calcium, here, let me ask you, what do you think of when I say calcium, Brandon?
I think of milk and cheese.
Milk, cheese, dairy, yogurt, all those good things. Absolutely. Those are all really good sources of calcium. I work with a lot of people that don't do dairy for a variety of reasons. There's really great plant sources as well for calcium. So some of the things that I just mentioned, those dark leafy green vegetables, especially when they're cooked up, the broccoli, cabbage, bok choy, tinned salmon salmon that has its bones in. I know it sounds weird, but I'll use it to make up little salads to put on crackers. Those bones are actually a good source of calcium. What are some of the other ones I was thinking of? Oh, some of the fortified with calcium, right? So maybe you're doing an almond milk. Is it fortified with calcium? Maybe doing orange juices that are fortified with that as well. So yeah, lots of non-dairy ones, but your biggest bang for your buck, what did I have it written down here? Like 1 cup of milk is 300 milligrams of calcium. And we want to get to about 1,250 milligrams a day, when we're looking at high blood pressure, and we want it spaced out throughout the day. We can only absorb about 600 milligrams at a time. So if you did all 1,200 for breakfast, you're not quite getting the best bang for your buck, but kind of spread throughout the day. An ounce of cheese, is about 200 milligrams of calcium. So, and then the magnesium, and I get excited about this. So greens are going to be a good source of that, but other things in there. So like pumpkin seeds. And if you see, I keep these in a jar. I throw them on salads. I throw them in smoothies. I eat them as snacks. 1 ounce of this is about 168 milligrams of magnesium. We're shooting for the high blood pressure for about 500 a day. Other nuts and seeds are good sources. Chocolate's one of my favorite. Dark chocolate's a fun way to get magnesium. But yeah, really, I'm like talking about smoothies. We could start off the day with like spinach, put some yogurt, put coconut milk as the base, throw some pumpkin seeds, which I put these in smoothies. It's a really great mix of these trio of nutrients to kind of start getting them in.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I smile there because if you are a longtime friend of the program and have heard Ashley talk, I swear, I think part of your salary comes from the chocolate companies, specifically the dark chocolate companies. You love you some dark chocolate, but okay. I want to talk real quick. You mentioned spinach for the greens. I heard you say cooked spinach multiple times. Does it matter if it's cooked or raw?
Great question. So, I would not put cooked spinach in a smoothie of mine, so we're looking raw. But, there's a couple things. When we cook spinach, you can put a bag of spinach in a pan and it cooks down to like a little amount. So yes, a cup of raw versus a cup of cooked spinach. Cooked spinach, I was saying a cup was, what did I have it at? Is like 800 milligrams, I should say, of that potassium. When we do it raw, we're looking at like 150 to 200. Another thing though about cooking, it unlocks some of these nutrients. So when we have cooked spinach or greens, it actually unlocks a little bit more of the potassium, a little bit more of the calcium, a little bit more of the magnesium. Cooking and raw, they're always unlocking some nutrients and then killing off some others. So it's a toss up. I'm a big fan of do some cooked, do some raw, however you like to get it in, do so. But if you're really like, I need to really bump up my potassium, I go with a cup of cooked spinach, a lot of bang for your buck. But no, that's a great question, Brandon.
Okay, so I know also in the same realm, when you are faced with high blood pressure and you are trying to understand how to expand your diet in a way that's helpful and meaningful, and you're looking at some of these numbers and trying to keep track of how can I get to this number and how can I get to that number, where do supplements come into play with all of this? Where do you supplement in certain nutrient areas to help you reach those numbers?
Yeah, another great question. So I'm a big fan of food first, and there's reasons why. You're not going to overdose. It's safe. But the other thing, when we're looking at like these food components, the DASH diet is not simply about those nutrients. It includes the fiber, other things that are really good. And if you're just taking a supplement of potassium, you're missing all that good fiber that you get. And that's also really important for our heart health. So my take is always food first. However, there are situations where we might need to supplement, right? We can't hit it for a certain reason. That being said, though, I would really encourage you to reach out to your doctor, work with a dietitian, ask me. We can kind of come up with a plan and say, hey, what's going to be the safest and most effective for you? And if we go that route, what are some good brands and what are we kind of looking at there? But so yeah, I'm food first, but there could be times for supplementation.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I'm going to throw an extra question that we weren't planning to talk about. Yeah. Staying in that realm, I know that there are specific supplements for some of these nutrients, but where does a general multivitamin come into play? Like if I'm being sensible about my diet and taking a multivitamin, it's probably a specific question for a specific person, but am I good with my multivitamin and trying to eat right? Or do I actually still probably need to do even more than that?
It depends. You want to look at those nutrition facts on the back of your supplement, and it'll tell you, how much potassium's in here, how much calcium, how much magnesium. So then, right? Like, okay, I've gotten this much towards my, towards my needs for the day. Do I need to supplement with, other supplements, or what foods could I throw in there? Yeah, that would be my biggest suggestion is, look at it and then reach out. I'm here, right? For city employees, if you want to craft a plan and come up with like a food combo or a food supplement combo, you can always shoot me an email. It's now nutritionist at columbus.gov. And we can, talk on the phone, meet in person, email, and really come up with like, how do I get these in a way that like is sustainable and doable each day? But yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. And kind of as we've gone through this conversation, there's nuance and there's something specific to what I've got going on, or how does this combine with, my dietary restrictions or my allergies. That is exactly why we make you available for the city of Columbus population, for the employee, for the family, so that these very specific questions, having a dietitian like you, Ashley, is so important to us. So yes, as she mentioned, nutritionist@columbus.gov is the email address. She's here. She's available. We'll link you up if you can't remember that email address, and you can have these conversations and so many more with Ashley. Ashley, I'm going to pause us there. This was really fun. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about high blood pressure. I'm glad you were here, and I appreciate your expertise and your passion and enthusiasm for this topic and so much more. So thanks for being on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Feels good to be back with y'all. And yeah, hope to talk soon.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you later, Ashley. Thank you guys so much for watching.